The red alert flashed across the holographic displays that lined the Mars Command Center. Colonel Alana Crest stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her expression unwavering as the emergency transmission continued to play. The message had been intercepted by Earth's deep space relay network, a desperate plea from a civilization calling itself the Vexari. "This is the third time we've received this broadcast." Lieutenant Soren reported, his fingers dancing across the control panel. Translation matrix confirms 99.8% accuracy. Alana nodded her sharp green eyes, scanning the translated text that scrolled beside the alien script. "And the Galactic Council's response?" "Still pending review, Colonel. They've acknowledged receipt, but site protocol requiring verification of species identity and threat assessment." A muscle twitched in Alana's jaw. The Galactic Council, always so measured, so cautious, so painfully slow to act. Humanity had only been part of the interstellar community for 53 years, but in that time, they'd quickly learned the frustrating pace at which the ancient civilizations operated. "We don't have time for their bureaucracy," she said, tapping a command into her wrist interface. "According to this SOS, the Vexari genetic code is being systematically erased. Estimated time before complete extinction, 72 hours. "Colonel," Major Elliott interjected, stepping forward from his monitoring station. "With respect, we can't just ignore Council protocols. If we act unilaterally, then we'll be doing exactly what the Deathworlders were asked, to join the galactic community," for Alana finished using the term that had become humanity's unofficial designation. "We evolve fast, we adapt fast, and we make decisions fast." The term, Deathworlders, had been applied to humans almost immediately upon first contact. Species that evolved on high-gravity, high-radiation, biochemically volatile planets like Earth were rare in the galaxy, creatures forged in constant environmental pressure, resulting in physiological resilience and psychological tenacity that bordered on alarming to most spacefaring civilizations. Alana pulled up the galactic chart and magnified the Valoran cluster where the Vexari home system was located. "What do we know about them?" Lieutenant Commander Nalini Kapoor, head of Xenobiological Assessment, stepped forward. "The Vexari are a Type II civilization primarily focused on arts and scientific theory rather than military development. Their physiology is silicon phosphate, based with a unique genome that allows them to process radioactive materials for energy. Their technology is highly advanced but specialized. They've achieved interstellar travel, but possess minimal weapons technology. Peaceful, advanced, vulnerable," Alana summarized. "A prime target." "Colonel, incoming transmission from Council headquarters," Soren announced. The central display shifted to reveal the stern face of Council Delegate Selin Armour, a tall, willowy being with opalescent skin and elongated features typical of the ancient Thalasian species. "Colonel Crest," the delegate began, his tone measured and formal. "The Council has reviewed your request for emergency intervention regarding the Vexari distress signal. After careful deliberation, we have determined that more information is required before committing resources. A diplomatic envoy will be dispatched within 14 standard cycles to assess." "2 weeks," Alana interrupted, unable to mask her incredulity. "Delegate Armour, the Vexari have specifically indicated they have less than 3 days before extinction-level events conclude." The delegate's expression remained impassive. "The Council cannot risk interstellar incidents based on unverified claims. Our protocols exist for good reason, Colonel. The human tendency toward hasty action has caused complications in the past." Alana felt her chest tighten. She knew exactly what the delegate was referencing: the Proxima incident, where a human fleet had intervened in what appeared to be a genocide, only to discover it was actually a complex religious ceremony. That had been humanity's first major misstep in galactic politics. "This is different," she insisted. "The translation is clear. Their genetic code is being systematically erased by weaponized technology. This isn't cultural misunderstanding, it's extinction. Nevertheless, Armour continued, the Council has made its decision. Stand down, Colonel. That is an official directive. The transmission cut, leaving the command center in tense silence. Alana stared at the blank screen, her mind racing through options consequences, and the oath she had taken both to Earth Command and to the preservation of sentient life. Orders, Colonel, Major Elliot asked quietly. Alana turned to face her senior staff. Prepare the Death Fleet for immediate deployment. 25 ships full combat readiness. I want Red Squadron prepped for potential boarding operations. Lieutenant Commander Kapoor's eyes widened. Colonel, are you sure about this? The Council directive was explicit. So was the Vexari distress call, Alana replied firmly. The Death Fleet was established precisely for this reason, rapid response when the Council moves too slowly. If we're wrong, I'll accept full responsibility. But if we're right, and we do nothing. She let the thought hang unfinished in the air. Major Elliot nodded slowly. I'll prepare the fleet. Time to departure. 90 minutes, Alana said. I want every ship ready for hard burn to the Valoran cluster. And send a message to Lieutenant Colonel Milo Reyes. I need his scout team ready to deploy ahead of the main fleet. As her officers dispersed to execute her orders, Alana remained still, staring at the galactic map, where the Vexari system pulsed a soft blue light. The decision weighed heavily on her shoulders, but the alternative, allowing an entire civilization to perish, while bureaucrats debated proper procedures, was unthinkable. Her wrist interface pinged with an incoming message from Earth Command, likely a response to the Council's complaint that was undoubtedly already filed. Alana ignored it. Once they were underway, there would be time for explanations, and if necessary, apologies. For now, 72 hours stood between an entire species and oblivion. In the launch bay of the HWS Thunderhead flagship of the Death Fleet, Lieutenant Colonel Milo Reyes checked his tactical gear one final time. His scout ship, a sleek, stealth-capable vessel, was prepped and waiting, its engines humming with restrained power. Scout team ready, sir. His second-in-command, Captain Javier Santos, reported. Milo nodded, his dark eyes focused on the mission parameters scrolling across his visor. We'll be jumping ahead of the main fleet, establishing perimeter reconnaissance around the Vexari system and adjacent territories. This is strictly intel gathering, no engagement unless absolutely necessary. Understood, sir, Santos replied, though I'm still not clear on what we're looking for. The brief mentioned genetic erasure. What exactly does that mean? That's part of what we need to find out, Milo said grimly. Whatever's happening to the Vexari, it's something new or something hidden. Either way, I don't like the sound of it. The hangar bay doors began to part, revealing the vast emptiness of space beyond Mars' orbit. Nearby, the imposing silhouettes of the Death Fleet's warships were already powering up their massive engines, casting blue-white flares against the darkness. Colonel Crest is risking a lot on this mission, Santos observed quietly. The Council doesn't take kindly to being overruled. Milo secured his helmet with a click. The Council doesn't take kindly to much of anything, especially when humans are involved. But they recruited us for a reason. We're willing to do what they won't. As the scout ship lifted off, Milo couldn't shake the feeling that this mission would change everything. In his 15 years serving with the interstellar forces, he'd seen enough to know when something felt wrong. The Vexari message, the Council's dismissal, the urgency in Colonel Crest's orders, it all pointed to something larger than a simple rescue operation. Their ship accelerated out of the bay, quickly reaching the jump point where they would engage the faster-than-light drives. Milo took one last look at the gathering Death Fleet before giving the order to jump. No mercy, he murmured to himself, reciting the unofficial motto of humanity's elite space forces. It wasn't born of cruelty, but of resolve. When facing threats to innocent life, hesitation cost lives. The galaxy had learned that humanity's adaptation to their death world had crafted them into protectors who, once committed, would stop at nothing. The stars stretched into lines of light, and then they were gone, racing ahead to uncover the truth about the Vexari's desperate plea. Colonel Alana Crest stood on the bridge of the HWS Storm Shield, the massive view screen before her, showing the assembled might of the Death Fleet. 25 warships each, a pinnacle of human ingenuity and determination, powered up in perfect formation. The fleet represented humanity's contribution to galactic security ships, designed to respond faster and hit harder than any Council force. All ships report ready, Colonel Commander Iskander reported from the tactical station. Jump calculations complete for the Valoran cluster. Alana nodded. Commence fleet-wide jump on my mark. She paused, keenly aware of the line she was about to cross. Mark. The space around them warped as 25 FTL drives engaged simultaneously, creating a cascading tunnel of distorted reality. The fleet shot forward into the artificial wormhole, leaving the Sol system behind. During the journey, Alana reviewed everything they knew about the Vexari, which wasn't much. Peaceful, scientifically advanced with little in the way of military resources. Their homeworld Vexa Prime was located in a resource-rich system that had until now remained largely undisputed territory. Colonel, Communications Officer Lin called out, "We're receiving a transmission from Scout Team Alpha." "Put it through," Alana ordered, straightening in her command chair. Lieutenant Colonel Reyes's face appeared on screen, his expression grim. "Colonel Crest, we've reached the outer systems in the Valoran cluster. I'm sending you our preliminary findings now, but..." He hesitated. "It's worse than we thought." The data package came through, and Alana's stomach tightened as she reviewed the images and sensor readings. "These are neighboring systems to the Vexari homeworld." "Yes, ma'am," Milo confirmed. "We found evidence of Vexari colonies on 3 planets in adjacent systems. All of them show the same pattern: total population collapse within the last 8 standard days. But here's the strange part. There's no sign of conventional warfare. No orbital bombardment, no invasion force, no radiation signatures from weapons fire." "Then what caused it?" Alana asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "Genetic collapse," Milo replied. "The few Vexari survivors we found are experiencing rapid cellular degradation. Their bodies are literally coming apart at the genetic level. Medical Officer Chung says it's as if something is unraveling their DNA equivalent, and the process accelerates once it begins." Alana's jaw tightened. "And you found survivors. Are they able to communicate?" "Barely," Milo said grimly. "They're in extreme distress physically and mentally. But they confirmed the SOS message they're being systematically eliminated by a species calling themselves the Jarax. According to the survivors, the Jarax deployed what they call a genetic solvent that targets specific sequences in Vexari DNA. A civilization-killing weapon," Alana said, the implications horrifying. "Designed for one specific species." "There's more," Milo continued. "The survivors indicate this isn't random. The Jarax apparently claim to be acting on behalf of a purification directive. They mentioned something called the Selection Committee." At this, Commander Iskander shot a concerned look at Alana. The Selection Committee was a rumored secret branch of the Galactic Council, one whose existence the Council officially denied. "What's the status of Vexa Prime?" Alana asked. "Unknown. We haven't approached the home system yet. Thought it prudent to wait for the main fleet given what we found. But long-range scans show significant space activity around the planet. Something big is happening there." "Understood. Hold position. We'll rendezvous at your coordinates in 6 hours." Alana ended the transmission and turned to her bridge crew. "Increase speed to maximum. I want us at the edge of the Vexari system as soon as possible." As the fleet accelerated through the FTL corridor, Alana called her senior officers to the tactical room. The mood was somber as she shared Lieutenant Colonel Reyes's findings. "If these Jarax are deploying a genetic weapon against the Vexari, this constitutes a clear violation of the Galactic Charter," Commander Iskander stated. "Even the Council would have to acknowledge that." "Unless they already know," Security Chief Commander Nadine Okoro said quietly. All eyes turned to her. "The Council's refusal to act, the mention of this Selection Committee. What if this isn't happening despite the Council but because of it? The suggestion hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Alana had considered the possibility, but hearing it spoken aloud made it feel more real and more terrifying. Speculation without evidence helps no one, she said firmly. Our mission remains the same. Stop whatever is happening to the Vexari and save as many as we can. If there's Council involvement, we'll deal with that after the immediate threat is neutralized. Lieutenant Kayla Vorn, leader of Red Squadron's elite boarding team, spoke up. Colonel, if we'll be facing an enemy using bioweapons, my team needs to know what protective measures to take. Are we sure our standard hazard suits will be sufficient against a weapon that can unravel alien DNA? Lieutenant Commander Kapoor, your assessment, Alana asked, turning to her xenobiology expert. Kapoor consulted her data tablet. Based on what we know of Vexari biology versus human genetics, the risk of cross-species effectiveness is minimal. Our DNA uses entirely different base pairs and structural arrangements. However, she hesitated, I'd recommend maximum containment protocols nonetheless. If the Jarax can design a weapon to target one species so precisely, they could potentially do the same to others. Noted, Alana said. Red Squadron will deploy with Class 5 biohazard protocols. Commander Kapoor, I want you working with medical to develop countermeasures just in case. As the meeting concluded, Major Elliot lingered behind. Once they were alone, he addressed Alana in a low voice. Colonel, you're aware that if the Council is involved even tangentially in what's happening to the Vexari, we could be starting something we can't finish. The Death Fleet is powerful, but we're still just one faction of humanity's forces. We can't take on the entire Galactic Council. Alana met his gaze steadily. I'm aware of the potential consequences, Major, but I'm also aware of the consequences of doing nothing. If we allow an entire civilization to be erased and say nothing, what does that make us? Elliot nodded slowly. I'm with you, Colonel. Just making sure you've considered all angles. I have, she replied, though the weight of the decision still pressed heavily upon her. And regardless of who's behind this Jarax Council, or something else, they're about to learn why humans earned the name Deathworlders. The HWS Storm Shield, dropped out of FTL at the coordinates, Lieutenant Colonel Reyes had provided the rest of the Death Fleet, emerging in perfect formation behind it. Immediately, the ship's sensors came alive with data from the nearby Vexari home system. Multiple contacts detected around Vexa Prime, reported the sensor officer. Configurations don't match any known Council species vessels. On the main view screen, tactical displays showed a dozen large ships in orbit, around a blue-green planet. Energy readings from the vessels were off the charts, suggesting weapons or technology far beyond standard Council capabilities. Lieutenant Colonel Reyes's scout ship approached the Storm Shield, requesting permission to dock. Once aboard, he delivered his findings in person to Colonel Crest and the senior officers. The ships in orbit belonged to the Jarax. Milo confirmed, displaying holographic images captured by his stealth probes. They're deploying what appears to be a massive energy weapon, aimed at the planet's surface, some kind of plasma mass driver. It's systematically targeting population centers. Casualties, Alana asked. Estimated 80% of the Vexari population already eliminated, Milo replied grimly. The rest are experiencing the genetic collapse we observed in the colonies. They've got maybe 12 hours left at most. And the Jarax themselves, what do we know about them? Very little. They're not a recognized Council species, at least not officially. Humanoid in basic structure, but with significant biological differences, enhanced exoskeletons, multiple sensory organs. Their technology is highly advanced, particularly in biological and energy weapons. Alana processed this information, her tactical mind already formulating a response. Their ship's weaknesses: heavy energy shielding but relatively thin hull armor. Once those shields are down, they seem to rely on offensive capability rather than defensive redundancy. One peculiarity: all their ships maintain constant communication with the flagship. Some kind of command-control dependency. That gives us an opening, Alana said, turning to Lieutenant Vorn. Kayla, how quickly can Red Squadron prepare for a boarding operation? The young lieutenant straightened. We can be ready in 30 minutes, Colonel. Good. Your target will be the Jarak's flagship. Primary objective: disable their command systems and secure any data regarding this genetic weapon. Secondary objective, if possible, find a way to halt or reverse the effects on the Vexari. What about the rest of the fleet? Commander Iskander asked. We'll engage the Jarak ships, directly drawing their attention while Red Squadron approaches from the planet's shadow. Once we confirm Lieutenant Vorn's team has breached the flagship, we'll push for full engagement, no holds barred. Major Elliott frowned. Colonel, we still haven't received any response from Earth Command regarding our departure from Council orders. That's correct, Major, Alana replied evenly. And until we do, we operate under standing orders to protect sentient life from extinction-level threats. I believe the situation qualifies. No one argued the point. The evidence before them was clear: a peaceful civilization was being systematically erased from existence. Whatever political fallout might come later, none of them could stand by and watch genocide unfold. One final thing, Alana said, her voice hardening. The Jaraks have shown no mercy to the Vexari. They've deployed a weapon designed to cause slow, painful extinction, rather than quick, clean destruction. Remember that when you engage them. A grim silence fell over the command room. The unofficial motto of the fleet, "No Mercy," took on new meaning in light of the atrocity they were witnessing. Fleet-wide communication in 5 minutes, Alana ordered. I want every ship, every pilot, every gunner to understand exactly what we're fighting for today. As her officers dispersed to their stations, Alana took a moment to center herself. In all her years of service, she had never disobeyed a direct council order of this magnitude. The consequences would be severe, possibly career-ending. But as she looked at the holographic image of Vexa Prime, its surface scarred by precision strikes, and its people dying by the millions, she knew she could live with those consequences. What she couldn't live with was doing nothing. In the armory of the Storm Shield, Lieutenant Kayla Vorn briefed her squadron. 20 elite soldiers, the best boarding specialists in the fleet, listened intently as she outlined their mission. This isn't a standard operation, she emphasized, her tone deadly serious. We're dealing with an unknown enemy using bioweapons against civilians. Class 5 protocols in effect, at all times, sealed suits, filtered air, no direct contact with any biological material. She activated a holographic display, showing the presumed layout of the Jarak's flagship, based on exterior scans and comparative analysis with known ship configurations. Our entry point will be here. She indicated a maintenance access near the ship's aft section. Scout data suggests minimal crew presence in this area. Once inside, we move directly to the command center here. She highlighted a large chamber in the ship's core. Intelligence suggests all weapon targeting and deployment is controlled from this central location. Private First Class. Ravi Mehta raised his hand. What about the Jaraks themselves, combat protocols? Kayla's expression hardened. These aren't soldiers following orders. They're participating in genocide. Standard escalation of force still applies, but make no mistake, they've demonstrated what they're willing to do to the Vexari. Expect no quarter if captured. The implication was clear, though Kayla wouldn't explicitly order her soldiers to show no mercy. Each would make their own choices in the heat of battle, guided by training and conscience. One more thing, she added. Sensor scans have detected life signs aboard the flagship that match surviving Vexari patterns. They may be holding prisoners, possibly for experimentation. If we encounter any Vexari, extraction becomes a tertiary objective. The squadron members nodded, their faces solemn behind their visor displays. They understood the stakes. This wasn't just about stopping an attack, but saving whatever remained of a dying civilization. Deployment in 20 minutes. Check your gear, then report to Drop Bay 3. Kayla dismissed them remaining behind to review the mission parameters one final time. As she studied the holographic display, Captain Julian Way approached. He was her second-in-command, a veteran of numerous high-risk operations, and someone whose judgment she trusted implicitly. "You're worried," he observed quietly. Kyla didn't bother denying it. "There's too much we don't know, Julian. Who are these Jarax? Where did they come from? How did they develop a weapon capable of targeting specific genetic sequences with such precision? And why target the Vexari specifically? You think there's more to this than a simple attack?" "I think very few things in galactic politics are simple," she replied. "Especially when the Council refuses to intervene in something this blatant." Julian nodded, the same concerns clearly weighing on his mind. "Well, hopefully we'll find some answers on that ship." "Hopefully," Kayla agreed. "But first, we need to stop what's happening. Everything else comes second." On the bridge of the Storm Shield, Colonel Alana Crest opened a fleet-wide channel. Every ship, every crew member from commanding officers to engineering techs would hear her words. "This is Colonel Crest. In approximately 15 minutes, the Death Fleet will engage an enemy force in orbit around Vexa Prime. This enemy, identifying themselves as the Jarax, is currently executing a systematic genocide of the Vexari people using advanced biological and energy weapons." She paused, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. "I want to be absolutely clear about our mission. We are here to stop this genocide by any means necessary. Many of you may be concerned about the political implications of our actions, given the Council's explicit order not to intervene. Those concerns are valid, and I take full responsibility for the decision to disregard that order." Alana's voice grew firmer, resolute. "But there are moments when following orders means betraying the very principles those orders were designed to uphold. The Galactic Charter, which we all swore to defend explicitly, prohibits the targeted elimination of any sentient species. What is happening to the Vexari is not warfare. It is extinction." The bridge crew listened in solemn silence as she continued. "Humanity joined the galactic community as Deathworlders survivors from a harsh planet who evolved to face threats head-on. We were asked to join precisely because we act when others hesitate. Today, we honor that role." She checked the tactical display where the enemy ships continued their methodical orbital bombardment of the planet below. "In 11 minutes, we will move into attack formation. Our primary targets are the Jarax weapon platforms and their flagship's command systems. Red Squadron will execute a boarding operation on the flagship to secure intelligence, and if possible a means to counter the biological weapon already deployed." Alana's voice softened slightly, acknowledging the human element behind the military precision. "Many of you have never seen combat against a non-Council species. Many of you have friends among the diplomatic corps who will question our actions today. Remember why we're here. Remember what's at stake. And remember that when faced with genocide, neutrality is not an option." She ended the transmission and turned to Commander Iskander at Tactical. "Status of the fleet. All ships report ready, Colonel. Weapons hot shields at maximum. Red Squadron's dropship is prepared for launch on your command." Alana nodded. "Begin approach sequence. Let's show these Jarax what happens when you target the defenseless, while Deathworlders are watching." The Death Fleet moved in perfect coordination, accelerating toward Vexa Prime. Initial scans suggested the Jarax had detected their approach, but weren't breaking their orbital pattern either. They were confident in their defensive capabilities, or they were committed to completing their bombardment of the planet, regardless of interruption. "Incoming transmission," Communications Officer Lin announced suddenly. It appears to be from the Jarax flagship." "Put it through," Alana ordered, steeling herself for the first direct contact with the species responsible for the Vexari suffering. The view screen flickered, then resolved to show a being unlike any Council species Alana had encountered. The Jarax had a vaguely humanoid shape, but with multiple articulated limbs protected by a glistening exoskeleton. Its head featured no recognizable eyes or mouth, but rather a cluster of sensory organs that pulsed with bioluminescent light as it spoke. "Unidentified fleet." The translation matrix converted its speech patterns into standard galactic You have entered restricted space during a sanctioned purification operation. Withdraw immediately or be designated as evolutionary refuse. Alana stood from her command chair, facing the screen directly. This is Colonel Alana Crest of the Human Death Fleet. There is nothing sanctioned about genocide. You will cease your attack on the Vexari immediately and withdraw from this system, or we will stop you by force. The Jarax's sensory cluster pulsed more rapidly. Humans, the new variables. Your designation as provisional members of the Galactic Order grants you no authority here. The Vexari have been classified as non-essential to cosmic progression. Their resources and spatial allocation have been reassigned by authority of the Selection Directive. Alana's suspicions deepened at the mention of this Selection Directive. It sounded dangerously close to the rumored Selection Committee that Commander Okoro had referenced. "Who issued this directive?" she demanded. "The Galactic Council has received the Vexari distress call and has made no formal declaration regarding their status." The Jarax emitted a sound that the translator couldn't process, perhaps laughter, perhaps derision. "The Council's public declarations are irrelevant. The Selection Directive operates beyond primitive concepts of species equality. Cosmic efficiency requires periodic pruning of developmental dead ends." With growing horror, Alana realized the implications. If this entity was to be believed some secret faction within, or connected to the Council, was systematically culling species deemed non-essential to galactic development. "You have your answer," she said coldly. "And now you have ours. Death Fleet, engage." The transmission cut as the human warships accelerated to attack speed. The Jarax vessels finally broke their orbital pattern, moving to intercept the approaching threat. "Launch, Red Squadron," Alana ordered, "and target the Jarax weapons platforms first. I want that bombardment stopped now." The battle for Vexa Prime had begun. Lieutenant Colonel Milo Reyes commanded the flanking element of the Death Fleet, leading 5 cruisers in a sweeping arc designed to divide the Jarax defense. As his ships approached, he watched the enemy vessels with calculating precision. "Energy readings suggest they're powering up some kind of plasma-based weapon system," his tactical officer reported. "Evasive pattern Delta," Milo ordered. "Staggered approach, don't give them predictable targets." The human ships moved with extraordinary agility for their size, a testament to the adaptive engineering that had become humanity's hallmark in space technology. Where Council vessels tended toward standardized designs, refined over millennia, human ships evolved rapidly, incorporating new concepts with each iteration. "Incoming fire," the tactical officer warned. Brilliant streams of superheated plasma erupted from the Jarax vessels, cutting through space toward the human ships. The cruisers scattered their point defense systems, activating automatically to disperse the plasma streams. "Return fire all batteries," Milo commanded. "Target their forward weapon emplacements." His flagship, the HWS Harrier, shuddered as its main guns discharged, sending magnetically accelerated tungsten rounds toward the nearest Jarax ship at a significant fraction of light speed. The kinetic energy alone would be devastating if they connected. The Jarax vessel attempted to evade, but the human targeting systems had already calculated its probable movement patterns. 3 of the rounds struck its lateral shields, causing cascading energy disruptions visible as rippling distortions around the ship's hull. "Direct hit," the tactical officer reported. "Enemy shields at approximately 60%, but still holding." Milo nodded, his expression grim. "Maintain fire focus on that same section. Their shield regeneration is slower than their offensive cycling. We can create a breach if we keep hammering the same spot." As his ships engaged the Jarax defenders, Milo kept one eye on the tactical display, showing Red Squadron's approach. The small dropship was using the chaos of the main battle as cover, slipping toward the massive Jarax flagship, while all attention was focused on the Death Fleet's assault. A proximity alarm blared, and Milo's attention snapped back to immediate concerns, as a Jarax vessel executed a surprisingly agile maneuver, closing distance with the Harrier, faster than anticipated. "Brace for impact," he shouted, as the enemy ship fired directly into their port side. The cruiser shuddered violently, internal gravity briefly fluctuating as emergency systems engaged. Damage reports flashed across Milo's console, indicating moderate hull breaches in 2 sections. Seal those decks," he ordered. "Rotate orientation 30 degrees to present undamaged armor, and return fire with ventral batteries." As his crew executed the commands, Milo reflected on the enemy's tactics. The Jarraks fought with ruthless efficiency, but also with a strange predictability, as if following predetermined battle algorithms, rather than adapting to the flow of combat. It was both a strength and a weakness. Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're intercepting transmissions between the Jarraks vessels. They all route through the flagship, some kind of centralized command structure." "That confirms Lieutenant Colonel Reyes's intelligence," Milo noted. "If Red Squadron can disrupt that command node, it might disorient their entire fleet." He opened a channel to the other ships in his battle group. "All vessels execute attack pattern Hydra. I want maximum pressure on the 3 ships closest to the planet's northern hemisphere. Force them to divide their attention." The human cruisers responded immediately, breaking into smaller attack formations that approached the Jarraks ships from multiple vectors simultaneously. It was a distinctly human tactic, chaotic, adaptive, unpredictable, and the enemy struggled to maintain defensive coherence against it. One of the Jarraks vessels, caught between coordinated fire from 2 human cruisers, suddenly lost shield integrity. Armor plating vaporized under sustained fire, and secondary explosions bloomed along its central spine. "One down," Milo's tactical officer reported as the enemy ship's power core destabilized, sending it tumbling into a decaying orbit. But before they could capitalize on the advantage, the remaining Jarraks ships adjusted their formation, interlocking their energy fields to create a combined defensive perimeter. It was an impressive display of coordination and further evidence of their reliance on centralized command. "They're adapting," Milo observed. "Signal the storm shield. Colonel Crest needs to know what we're seeing here. And increase fire on their port flank. Let's keep them focused on us while Red Squadron makes their approach." The battle intensified as both sides committed fully to the engagement. In his years of service, Milo had participated in numerous combat operations, but never against a foe with this level of technological sophistication. The Jarraks were formidable, but they were facing Deathworlders now, and humans had evolved over millions of years to overcome seemingly impossible odds. As the dropship carrying Red Squadron approached the massive Jarraks flagship, Lieutenant Kayla Vorn finished her final equipment check. The vessel was running silent, using the flagship's own energy emissions as cover to mask their approach. 90 seconds to contact," the pilot announced over the squad channel. "They haven't detected us yet, but that won't last once we breach their hull." Kayla nodded, securing her helmet and activating the full biocontainment protocols. The transparent visor darkened slightly as the heads-up display came online, showing vital signs and tactical information. "Remember," she addressed her team, "we move fast, we stay together, and we get to the command center at all costs. Initial breach team will secure the entry point. Second team follows and establishes our fallback position. Main assault team continues to the objective." The soldiers nodded, their expressions hidden behind identical helmets, but their body language conveying focused determination. These weren't raw recruits, but veterans of numerous high-risk operations. Many had served together for years, developing the instinctive coordination that made Red Squadron legendary among the Deathworlders' forces. 30 seconds, the pilot warned. "Preparing magnetic grapples." The dropship slowed to match velocity with the Jarraks flagship, approaching a section of hull that appeared to be a maintenance access point, based on thermal variations detected by their sensors. With surgical precision, the pilot positioned them directly adjacent to the alien vessel. "Contact," he announced, as magnetic clamps engaged, securing them to the flagship's exterior. "Hull integrity readings confirm this is a thinner section. Cutting charges should work." Kayla moved to the airlock with the initial breach team. "Deploy charges. Standard pattern 10-second delay." Specialist Thomas Rodriguez moved forward, placing shaped explosive charges in a precise, circular pattern on the Jarak's hull. The charges were designed to direct their force inward, cutting through the material, while minimizing the explosive radius. Charges set. He reported retreating to a safe distance. Initiating in 3, 2, 1. The charges detonated in perfect sequence, the sound muffled in the vacuum of space, but the vibration noticeable through the dropship's hull. As the smoke cleared, a perfectly cut circular opening appeared in the Jarak's vessel. Breach successful, Kayla reported over the command channel. Red Squadron initiating boarding operation. She led the way through the opening, her weapon raised, and sensors scanning for immediate threats. The interior was dimly lit with a bioluminescent glow, emanating from what appeared to be living tissue, integrated into the ship's structural components. "This isn't standard construction," Captain Wei observed, as he followed through the breach. "The ship is partially organic." Kayla nodded. "Noted. Maintain biocontainment protocols. We don't know what might be airborne in here." As the full squad entered the Jarak ship, they found themselves in a curved corridor that pulsed with subtle light patterns. Their suit sensors detected a complex atmosphere breathable to human physiology, but laced with unknown biological compounds. Command center should be approximately 300 meters in that direction. Kayla indicated, consulting the schematic overlaid on her HUD. "Let's move." They advanced cautiously, but quickly, encountering no immediate resistance. The absence of security forces was concerning either. The Jaraks were confident in their hull integrity, or they were waiting in ambush further inside. "This feels too easy," Private Meta whispered over the squad channel. Stay focused," Kayla replied. "Remember, their attention is divided between our fleet and their attack on the planet. They likely never expected a boarding action." As they rounded a curve in the corridor, they encountered their first Jaraks. Two of the exoskeletal beings stood before what appeared to be a control interface, manipulating holographic displays with their multiple limbs. They turned at the sound of the human's approach, sensory clusters, pulsing rapidly in what might have been alarm. Before the aliens could react further, Captain Wei fired 2 precisely aimed shots. The first Jarax collapsed immediately, dark fluid leaking from punctures in its exoskeleton. The second managed to reach toward a panel on the wall, before Rodriguez neutralized it with similar efficiency. "Check that panel," Kayla ordered. "Could be an alarm system." Specialist Maya Chen approached the wall interface, scanning it with her tactical computer. "It's tied into ship-wide communications. I think they were about to signal an alert." "Can you access their systems from here?" Chen shook her head. "Interface is biolinked. Requires their specific genetic structure to operate." "Then we stick to the plan," Kayla decided. "Command center is our best chance at gaining system access. Move out and stay alert, they know we're here now." The squad continued deeper into the flagship, encountering sporadic resistance from Jarak's crew members. Each engagement was brief and decisive. The human soldiers had trained extensively for close-quarters combat, and their reflexes, honed on a high-gravity world, gave them a speed advantage over the more methodical Jaraks. As they approached a junction in the corridor system, their suit sensors detected a significant change in the environmental composition ahead. "Heavy concentration of unknown biological agents in the next section," reported Specialist Harper, their environmental expert. "Definitely weapon-grade material." Kayla frowned inside her helmet. "Are we near their bioweapon storage?" Harper consulted his scanner. "Possible, but I'm also detecting life signs consistent with Vexari physiology. Multiple individuals, all in extreme distress. A prisoner section, or worse, an experimentation lab." Kayla made a quick tactical decision. "Wei, take half the squad and continue to the command center. I'll take the rest to investigate these readings. If these are Vexari survivors, we need to extract them." "Understood," Wei acknowledged. "We'll secure the primary objective. Meet at the rendezvous point in 30 minutes. As the squad divided, Kayla led her team toward the biological readings. The corridor widened into a chamber filled with transparent containment units, each housing a Vexari captive. The silicon-based beings resembled tall, crystalline humanoids, with intricate internal structures, visible through their semi-transparent outer layers. Many showed signs of the genetic degradation Lieutenant Colonel Reyes had described. Their once ordered internal patterns, now riddled with chaotic disruptions. Life support systems keeping them in stasis, Harper observed, scanning the nearest containment unit. They're studying the progression of the weapon. Kayla's jaw tightened at the clinical cruelty of it. Can we release them safely? Yes, but they'll need immediate medical attention. The degradation process is advanced. Signal the storm shield, Kayla ordered. Tell them we've found Vexari prisoners who need emergency extraction and treatment. She turned to the rest of her team. Secure the room and prepare these units for transport. We're taking them with us. As her soldiers moved to comply, Kayla noticed a separate chamber beyond the containment area. Inside, several Jerax worked at what appeared to be a central processing station surrounded by vials of luminescent fluid. That must be their weapons lab, she realized. Harper Rodriguez with me. We need to secure samples of that compound for our medical team to analyze. The three soldiers approached the entrance to the lab, weapons ready. Through the transparent partition, they could see the Jerax scientists continuing their work, unaware of the human presence in the adjacent chamber. Quick and clean, Kayla instructed. Neutralize the threat and secure those samples. They burst into the lab, catching the Jerax completely by surprise. Two fell immediately to precisely aimed shots. A third reached for what appeared to be a weapon, but Rodriguez eliminated it before it could fire. The final Jerax raised its limbs in what might have been a gesture of surrender. Secure it, Kayla ordered, moving toward the central console, where vials of the bioluminescent fluid were arranged in a sequential testing apparatus. Harper approached the remaining Jerax weapon, trained carefully on its central mass. It's trying to communicate something, he reported, as the alien's sensory cluster pulsed in regular patterns. Before Kayla could respond, emergency lighting flooded the chamber, and a klaxon-like sound reverberated through the ship's structure. They've detected the breach, she realized. Way status report. Her comm unit crackled with Captain Way's voice, partially distorted by interference. Heavy resistance. Approaching command center. They're deploying some kind of autonomous defense units. The transmission cut off abruptly. Kayla made a split-second decision. Rodriguez collects samples of that compound. Harper, bring our prisoner. We're moving to support Way's team. As they secured the laboratory materials, Kayla couldn't shake the feeling that something about this entire situation didn't add up. The Jerax technology, their systematic approach to elimination of the Vexari, the references to a selection directive. It all suggested an operation with far more extensive backing than a single aggressive species should possess. But those questions would have to wait. Right now, her squad was in danger, and Vexari lives hung in the balance. On the bridge of the storm shield, Colonel Alana Crest monitored the battle with increasing concern. The Death Fleet had managed to disable 3 Jerax vessels and force the others into defensive positions. But the flagship remained heavily protected and continued directing orbital fire at Vexa Prime. Status of Red Squadron, she demanded. Last communication indicated they've breached the flagship and split into 2 teams, Commander Iskander reported. They've located Vexari prisoners and what appears to be a bioweapon laboratory. Extraction plan. Lieutenant Vorn requested medical support for the recovered Vexari. Their shuttle can handle the extraction once they complete their primary objective. Alana nodded, then turned her attention back to the tactical display. Something about the Jerax battle formation had been bothering her, and now she saw the pattern emerging. They're not trying to win, she realized aloud. Look at their positioning. They're focusing entirely on maintaining their bombardment of the planet, even at the cost of their own ships. Commander Iskander studied the display. You're right. Their priority isn't defeating us. It's completing their mission against the Vexari. Which means whatever they're doing down there is on a timetable, Alana concluded. Something specific they need to finish. She opened a channel to Lieutenant Colonel Reyes. Milo, I need eyes on the planet's surface immediately. What exactly are they targeting with those plasma strikes? On it, Milo responded. The tactical display shifted as one of his scout ships broke formation and accelerated toward Vexa Prime's atmosphere. Minutes later, the scout transmitted visual data from a low orbital pass. The images showed a series of precisely targeted strikes, each centered on what appeared to be crystal structures embedded in the planet's crust. "What am I looking at?" Alana asked. Lieutenant Commander Kapoor stepped forward, analyzing the images. "Those are Vexari gestation chambers. Based on what we know of their biology, they use these crystal formations to store backup genetic templates, essentially their species' DNA vault." "They're not just killing the current population," Alana realized with growing horror. "They're ensuring the Vexari can never recover or be reconstituted." "Colonel," Communications Officer Lin interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from within the Xerix flagship. It's using Council diplomatic encryption protocols." Alana froze. Council encryption on a Xerax ship confirmed her worst suspicions. "Put it through to my private channel." The view screen in her command alcove activated, revealing not a Xerax, but a Thalasian, specifically Council delegate Selin Armor. The opalescent-skinned being regarded her with cold composure. "Colonel Crest," he began, his tone maddeningly formal, "you have interfered in matters beyond your jurisdiction and understanding. The operation in progress is authorized at the highest levels of galactic governance." "You're participating in genocide," Alana replied, struggling to contain her anger. "There is no authorization that makes that acceptable." A limited perspective typical of younger species," Armor said dismissively. "The Galactic Council has maintained order for 50,000 years precisely because difficult decisions are made when necessary. The Vexari genetic line has been deemed incompatible with long-term cosmic stability." "By whom?" Alana demanded. "The Selection Committee, a secret tribunal that decides which species live and which die." Armor's expression betrayed momentary surprise before returning to its practiced neutrality. "You are more informed than anticipated. Yes, the Selection Committee evaluates evolutionary trajectories and intervenes when necessary. It is regrettable but essential for maintaining galactic equilibrium." "There's nothing regrettable about it to you," Alana said coldly. "You're watching millions die and calling it cosmic stability." "Your species is too young to understand the complexities of managing a galactic ecosystem," Armor replied. "The Vexari genetic structure contains elements that, if allowed to develop further, would create cascade disruptions across multiple evolutionary pathways. Their elimination now prevents greater suffering later." "And the Xerax, what are they in all this?" "Executive agents, a species specifically evolved and guided to implement necessary adjustments with precision." The implications were staggering. Alana realized they weren't just facing a rogue species, but an institutionalized system of species elimination disguised as galactic management. "You invited humanity into the galactic community," she said quietly. "You called us Deathworlders and said our adaptability and determination were assets. Did you ever consider we might use those traits to protect others, rather than serve your hidden agenda?" "A miscalculation," Armor admitted. "Your species' ethical framework includes certain inflexibilities regarding the greater good, a trait that will likely be selected against in time." The threat was thinly veiled, and Alana understood its meaning clearly. Humanity's unwillingness to accept selective genocide might eventually place them on the committee's list as well. "This transmission serves as a final warning," Armor continued. "Withdraw your forces immediately. The Council will overlook this unauthorized intervention, given your species' immaturity. Continue, and there will be consequences far beyond what you can imagine." Alana's response was immediate and unequivocal. "No, we will not withdraw. We will not allow the Vexari to be exterminated. And when this is over, the galaxy will know what the Council has been doing in secret." Armor's expression hardened. "Then, You have made your choice, Colonel. Remember this moment when your species faces the consequences. The transmission ended, leaving Alana momentarily shaken by the scale of the conspiracy they had uncovered. But determination quickly replaced shock. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Colonel Crest. The situation has escalated. We are no longer simply fighting the Jarax, but a covert operation sanctioned by elements within the Galactic Council. Our mission remains unchanged: stop the genocide of the Vexari at all costs. She turned to Commander Iskander. Concentrate all fire on the flagship's propulsion systems. I want that ship immobilized. And get me a direct line to Red Squadron. They need to know what they're really dealing with. Inside the Jarax flagship, Lieutenant Kayla Vorn led her team through increasingly complex corridors, following the sound of weapons fire. They had secured the Vexari prisoners in their stasis units, programming the ship's internal transport system to deliver them to the extraction point, where a second human shuttle would retrieve them. Contact ahead, Specialist Rodriguez warned as they approached an intersection. Kayla signaled for the team to halt, then carefully edged forward to assess the situation. What she saw confirmed her fears. Captain Wei's team was pinned down outside the command center by what appeared to be automated defense drones. The mechanical guardians floated on anti-gravity fields, firing precisely calibrated energy pulses at the human soldiers who had taken cover behind structural support columns. "Harper, what are we looking at?" she asked, studying the drone's movement patterns. The specialist consulted his tactical scanner. Autonomous security units with integrated weapon systems. They're connected to the ship's central computer, but operate independently if that connection is severed. Weaknesses. Limited sensor range behind them. They're focused on forward threat assessment. Kayla nodded, formulating a plan. Rodriguez, take our Jarax prisoner back to the extraction point. Harper, you're with me. We're going to circle around and hit those drones from behind. Using a parallel corridor shown on their HUD schematics, Kayla and Harper maneuvered into position behind the security drones. Captain Wei spotted their approach and subtly signaled understanding, preparing his team to coordinate their attack. "On my mark," Kayla whispered over the secure channel. 3, 2, 1, mark. She and Harper opened fire simultaneously, their weapons calibrated to the specific energy frequencies that would disrupt the drone's systems, rather than trigger their explosive failsafes. At the same moment, Wei's team launched a coordinated assault from their position. Caught in the crossfire, the drone's defensive algorithms faltered, unable to prioritize threats from multiple directions. Within seconds, the last of them collapsed to the floor systems disabled. "Status," Kayla demanded as she rejoined the main squad. 2 wounded but mobile, Wei reported. "We were about to breach the command center when those security units deployed." "The ship is on high alert," Kayla informed him. "And we've got bigger problems. Colonel Crest just relayed new intelligence. The Jarax are working with a secret faction of the Galactic Council called the Selection Committee. This whole operation is council-sanctioned." Wei's expression darkened behind his visor. "That explains the advanced technology and the reference to a purification directive." "Exactly," Kayla agreed. "And it means whatever's in that command center is even more valuable than we thought. If we can secure evidence of Council involvement in genocide, it changes everything." The squad regrouped, preparing for the final push into the command center. Their suit sensors detected at least 8 Jarax lifeforms inside, along with energy signatures suggesting significant defensive capabilities. Standard breach formation," Kayla ordered. "Wei, Rodriguez, take point with shield projectors. Harper, prepare EMP charges for electronic systems. Everyone else, targeted elimination of threats. We need to secure that command system intact." The squad moved into position around the sealed entrance to the command center. Harper attached specialized charges designed to overload the door's security mechanisms, rather than destroy them outright. "Charges set," he reported. "Detonation in 5 seconds." The explosive pulse was barely audible, but the effect was immediate. The door's locking mechanism sputtered and failed, leaving it vulnerable to forced entry. Wei and Rodriguez activated their tactical shields, advanced energy barriers designed to absorb multiple impacts, and led the way in. The command center was a vast chamber, dominated by a central holographic display, showing Vexa Prime and the ongoing bombardment. Jarax operators worked at biological mechanical interfaces around the perimeter, while what appeared to be a command-level individual directed operations from a raised platform. The human entry triggered immediate response. Jarax security personnel drew weapons and fired their energy pulses, dissipating harmlessly against the tactical shields. The squad returned fire with disciplined precision, neutralizing threats while carefully avoiding damage to the central command systems. "Secure the perimeter!" Kayla shouted as she advanced toward the central platform. The commanding Jarax turned to face her, its sensory cluster pulsing with what might have been indignation or alarm. "Your interference is futile," it stated, the translation matrix in Kayla's helmet converting its communication. "The purification protocol is already in its final phase. The Vexari genome will be completely erased within the hour." "Not if we stop it," Kayla replied, keeping her weapon trained on the alien. "Order your ships to cease bombardment of the planet." "Impossible. The directive comes from the selection committee itself. We are merely instruments of cosmic balance." From the corner of her eye, Kayla noticed Harper, working his way to a control interface, using the distraction of her confrontation to gain access to the Jarax systems. "Lieutenant," he called out after a moment, "I've accessed their command protocols. They're running an automated targeting sequence focused on specific coordinates on the planet." "Can you override it?" "Negative. The sequence is locked with Council authorization codes." "But," he hesitated, fingers moving rapidly across the interface, "I might be able to extract the authorization data itself." The commanding Jarax made a sudden movement toward what appeared to be an emergency control panel. Without hesitation, Captain Wei neutralized the threat with a precise shot. "The rest of the ship will know something's wrong when command stops responding," Wei warned. "We need to work fast." "Harper, download everything you can," Kayla ordered. "Focus on the authorization codes and any evidence linking this operation to the Council." As Harper worked, Kayla opened a channel to Colonel Crest. "Red Squadron to Storm Shield. We've secured the command center but cannot override the bombardment sequence. Specialist Harper is extracting data that should provide evidence of Council involvement and possibly a way to counter the genetic weapon." "Understood, Lieutenant." Alana's voice came through clearly, despite interference. "Our fleet has disabled 3 more Jarax vessels, but the remaining ships continue to target the planet. How much longer do you need?" Kayla glanced at Harper, who held up 3 fingers. 3 minutes, Colonel. Then we'll need extraction." "You'll have it," Alana promised. "The Harrier is moving into position to create a diversion. Get that data and get out." As Harper continued downloading the critical information, Kayla studied the holographic display, showing the planet below. The systematic bombardment had covered nearly 70% of the surface, each strike precisely targeted at the crystal formations Lieutenant Commander Kapoor had identified as genetic repositories. "How widespread is the genetic degradation among surviving Vexari?" she asked Wei, who was monitoring communications from the fleet. "Medical reports from the Storm Shield indicate the effect is accelerating," he replied grimly. "Without intervention, total species extinction within 8 hours." Kayla's jaw tightened. They had come to prevent genocide, but they might be too late to do more than document it, unless the data Harper was extracting contained something that could help. "Download complete," Harper announced. "I've got the full authorization chain weapon specifications and—" He paused, eyes widening behind his visor. "Genetic templates for 42 species designated for evolutionary adjustment." "The Vexari aren't the first," Kayla realized aloud. "And they wouldn't have been the last." "The Jarax ships are changing formation," Wei reported suddenly. "They're converging on this vessel." "They know what we've taken," Kayla concluded. "Time to go. Harper, secure that data. Everyone else prepare for extraction." As the squad began their withdrawal from the command center, a proximity alarm sounded through the ship. The Jarraks were deploying internal defense systems to prevent their escape. Colonel Crest, Kayla, calmed. "We need that extraction now. Things are about to get very complicated in here." On the bridge of the Storm Shield, Colonel Alana Crest directed the fleet's efforts with grim determination. The Death Fleet had taken damage, 2 cruisers severely compromised, several others, reporting significant systems failure. But they had succeeded in disrupting the Jarraks' attack pattern. Lieutenant Colonel Reyes reports his strike force has disabled the flagship's main propulsion systems. Commander Iskander announced. The vessel can no longer maintain stable orbit. "Good," Alana replied. "That should buy Red Squadron the time they need." She opened a channel to the extraction team. "Falcon 1, what's your status?" "In position near the flagship's aft section, Colonel," the pilot responded. "Ready for immediate extraction once Red Squadron reaches the rendezvous point." Falcon 2 status on the Vexari prisoners. "Secured and en route to the Storm Shield, Colonel. Medical team standing by to receive them." Alana nodded, studying the tactical display where Red Squadron's position was marked inside the massive Jarraks vessel. They were moving toward the extraction point, but encountering heavy resistance. "Deploy combat drones to create a diversion," she ordered. "Target the flagship's external defense systems near the extraction zone. I want those guns offline when our people make their run." As the fleet executed her commands, Alana turned her attention to the bigger picture. The battle was only part of what they faced now. The revelation of Council involvement in sanctioned genocide would send shockwaves through the galactic community, assuming they survived to report it. "Colonel," Communications Officer Lin called out, "we're receiving multiple transmissions from Council space. 6 Thalasian warships have been dispatched to the Valoran cluster with orders to contain the situation." "How long until they arrive?" "Approximately 4 hours at their maximum speed." 4 hours. Not much time to complete their mission and determine their next move. The Council would undoubtedly frame this as human aggression rather than a justified intervention against genocide. "Update from Lieutenant Vorn," the tactical officer announced. "They've reached the secondary extraction point but report the primary route is blocked, requesting alternative escape vector." Alana studied the schematic of the Jarraks flagship, identifying potential weaknesses. "There," she pointed to a section near the ship's communication array. "The hull should be thinner there. Tell them to create their own exit." The order was relayed, and on the tactical display, Red Squadron's marker changed direction, heading toward the new extraction point. "All ships provide covering fire for Falcon 1, Alana commanded. "I want everything we've got focused on keeping that extraction path clear." The Death Fleet responded with a coordinated barrage, targeting the Jarraks vessels, attempting to converge on their disabled flagship. Kinetic rounds and energy beams cut through space, creating a momentary corridor through which the extraction shuttle could approach. Colonel, Lieutenant Commander Kapoor approached urgently. "Medical reports an important discovery from the Vexari prisoners. The genetic degradation appears to be caused by a synthetic enzyme that targets specific gene sequences. More importantly, one prisoner shows signs of developing resistance to the effect." Alana's attention sharpened. "Natural resistance or treatment effect?" "Natural," Kapoor confirmed. "Something in this individual's genetic structure is fighting back against the degradation process. If we can isolate and replicate that factor, we might be able to save the survivors," Alana finished. "Make it top priority. Use whatever resources you need." As Kapoor hurried to relay the orders to the medical team, a new alert sounded from the tactical station. "Energy surge detected on the Jarraks flagship." Commander Iskander reported concern evident in his voice. "They're activating some kind of secondary weapon system." Before Alana could respond, the massive vessel emitted a pulsing wave of energy that spread outward in all directions. As it passed through the human ships, electronic systems flickered momentarily before stabilizing. "Minimal effect on our systems," Iskander reported after a quick check. "Our shielding held." "That wasn't aimed at us," Alana realized suddenly. "It was aimed at the planet. Sensors, what's happening on Vexa Prime?" The sensor officer's hands flew across his controls, directing orbital scanners toward the planet's surface. Energy wave penetrating to planetary crust level, interacting with something. The crystal formations are resonating with the energy frequency. It's accelerating the genetic degradation, Alana concluded grimly. They're trying to finish the job before we can stop them. She opened a channel to Red Squadron. Lieutenant Vorn's status report. Kayla's voice came through, punctuated by the sounds of weapons fire. Almost at the new extraction point, Colonel. Heavy resistance, but we're pushing through. Harper has the full data package secure. Be advised, the Jarraks have activated some kind of planetary-scale acceleration of their weapon effect. Whatever you've got, we need it now if we're going to save any Vexari. Understood, Kayla replied. There's something in this data about a command sequence, some kind of master control for the genetic solvent. If we can access it. The transmission cut off abruptly as an explosion rocked the Jarrak's flagship, visible even from the Storm Shield's position. Red Squadron, come in, Alana called urgently. Lieutenant Vorn, report. For several agonizing seconds, there was no response. Then through static and interference. Created extraction point. Moving to rendezvous with Falcon 1. Request immediate cover fire. All batteries target designated coordinates. Alana ordered without hesitation. Clear that path now. The Death Fleet responded with overwhelming force, concentrating fire on the section of space between the flagship and the approaching extraction shuttle. The few remaining Jarrak's vessels attempted to intercept, but were driven back by the human onslaught. On the tactical display, a small craft emerged from the Jarrak's flagship Falcon 1, with Red Squadron aboard. It accelerated away from the disabled vessel, pursued by security drones that were quickly eliminated by precision fire from the human fleet. Falcon 1 to Storm Shield. The pilot's voice came through clearly now. Package secured. Red Squadron aboard with all essential personnel and data. 4 wounded, but stable. Alana released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Good work, Falcon 1. Return to the Storm Shield immediately. She turned to Commander Iskander. Prepare to disengage once they're aboard. We've done all we can here for now. What about the Vexari still on the planet? Iskander asked quietly. Alana's expression was pained, but resolute. We can't save them all. But if the data Red Squadron recovered can help us counteract this weapon, we might be able to save the species. That has to be our priority now. As the extraction shuttle approached the Storm Shield, Alana opened a ship-wide channel. All hands prepare for immediate departure, once Falcon 1 is secured. We've accomplished our primary mission objective, but face a new challenge. Council forces are en route to this system. We need to analyze what we've discovered and determine our next actions before they arrive. The reality of their situation was sinking in. They had directly opposed not just the Jarraks, but the hidden machinations of the Galactic Council itself. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was potentially the beginning of a fundamental shift in humanity's place in the galactic community. As Lieutenant Kayla Vorn strode onto the bridge of the Storm Shield, the evidence of the fierce boarding action was written across her armor. Scorched panels and impact marks testified to the resistance Red Squadron had encountered, but the determined set of her jaw showed the mission had been successful. Colonel. She saluted, then handed over a secure data module. The complete Jarrak's command archives, including Council authorization codes and the operational parameters for the genetic weapon. Alana accepted the module with a nod of acknowledgement. Good work, Lieutenant. Casualties. 4 wounded, none critical. Specialist Harper took a hit protecting the data, but he'll recover. And the Jarrak's prisoner, being held in secure containment. It's been cooperative, actually. Almost as if it wanted to be captured. That was interesting, and potentially concerning. Alana would need to question the prisoner personally, but first, they needed to analyze the recovered data. Lieutenant Commander Kapoor, she called, passing her the module. I need your team to focus on any information regarding the genetic weapon structure and potential countermeasures. Work with medical. They've identified a Vexari showing natural resistance. Kapoor nodded immediately, taking the module to a secure analysis station. We'll cross-reference the weapon specifications with the resistant individual's genetic profile. If there's a way to neutralize this weapon, we'll find it. Alana turned back to the tactical display, where the disabled Jarax flagship drifted in a decaying orbit around Vexa Prime. The remaining enemy vessels had regrouped, but were maintaining distance, seemingly awaiting further orders. "They're in disarray without their command center," Commander Iskander observed. "But they haven't surrendered or withdrawn." "They can't," Alana replied. "The selection committee wouldn't allow failure. They'll continue their mission until forced to stop." "What's our next move, Colonel?" Major Elliott asked, joining them at the tactical station. "Council forces will arrive in under 4 hours. We're damaged low on ammunition and officially in violation of direct council orders." Alana considered their options carefully. The Death Fleet didn't come this far to leave the job half done. If Kapoor can identify a countermeasure to the genetic weapon, we implement it immediately regardless of council forces. After that, she paused, the weight of the decision heavy on her shoulders. We take this evidence to Earth Command and prepare for the political fallout. "The Council will deny everything," Elliott pointed out. "They'll claim the data is fabricated, that we interfered in a legitimate security operation." "Which is why we need more than just data," Alana replied. "We need witnesses, the Vexari survivors, the Jarax prisoner, and irrefutable evidence of the weapon's deployment." She turned to Communications Officer Lin. "Prepare a comprehensive data package. Everything we've recorded since receiving the initial distress call. I want it ready to broadcast galaxy-wide if necessary." As her officers moved to execute her orders, Alana's wrist interface pinged with a priority message from Earth Command. It had been inevitable. The Council would have filed formal protests the moment the Death Fleet departed Mars. The message was brief and to the point. "Colonel Crest, you are ordered to stand down immediately and return the Death Fleet to Sol system. Your actions constitute a direct violation of Council protocol and Earth Command directives. Failure to comply will result in immediate removal from command." Alana closed the message without responding. Earth Command was reacting to political pressure, not to the reality of what was happening in the Valoran cluster. Once they had the full evidence, their position might change, or it might not. Either way, she had made her choice when she first ordered the fleet to respond to the Vexari distress call. Colonel Lieutenant Commander Kapoor called out excitedly, "We've found something." Alana moved quickly to the science station where Kapoor and Dr. Eliza Bhatnagar, the ship's chief medical officer, were reviewing data streams from both the Jarax archives and their analysis of the resistant Vexari. "The weapon is brilliantly designed," Kapoor explained, highlighting molecular structures on her display. "It targets a specific regulatory sequence in Vexari genetics that controls cellular cohesion. Once compromised, the degradation cascades throughout their entire biological structure. But there's a vulnerability," Dr. Bhatnagar continued. "The resistant individual possesses a natural mutation that alters the binding site where the weapon attaches. It's a subtle change, but significant enough to reduce the weapon's effectiveness by approximately 60%. "Can we replicate this mutation?" Alana asked. "Better," Kapoor replied with growing excitement. "The Jarax data includes the exact transmission frequency used to activate and sustain the weapon effect. It's maintained by a specific energy signature broadcast from their ships. If we can generate an inverse frequency pattern, we could neutralize the weapon entirely." Alana finished, immediately grasping the implications. "How quickly can you develop this countermeasure?" "The science is straightforward now that we understand the mechanism," Dr. Bhatnagar said. "An hour, maybe less, to calibrate our communications array to broadcast the neutralizing frequency." "Make it a priority," Alana ordered, "and prepare a version we can send to the planet's surface to help survivors there." As the scientific team rushed to implement their solution, Alana returned to the bridge, her mind racing with strategic calculations. They had perhaps 3 hours before Council forces arrived, enough time to deploy the countermeasure, but not much margin for error. "Status of the Jarax vessels," she asked, scanning the tactical display. "Holding position near the planet," Commander Iskander reported. "Still conducting limited bombardment, but at reduced efficiency. They appear to be conserving energy, possibly waiting for reinforcements." Alana nodded. "They know Council ships are coming. They're playing for time." She turned to Major Elliott. "Once the countermeasure is ready, we'll need to deploy it across the entire planet as quickly as possible. Prepare shuttles for atmospheric entry, multiple insertion points to ensure maximum coverage." "That will leave the fleet vulnerable," Elliott pointed out. "We'll have to divide our forces." "A calculated risk we need to take," Alana replied firmly. "Lieutenant Colonel Reyes's battle group will maintain defensive positions while the deployment occurs." In the medical bay, Lieutenant Kayla Vorn watched as Dr. Bhatnagar and her team worked feverishly to synthesize the countermeasure. The Vexari survivors they had rescued were stabilized in specialized containment units, their crystalline bodies pulsing weakly with diminishing light. "Will they survive?" Kayla asked quietly. "Some will," Dr. Bhatnagar replied, without looking up from her work. "The ones we rescued from the flagship were in stasis, which slowed the progression of the weapon. But they're still deteriorating, just more slowly." Captain Wei joined them, his armor removed, but his expression still tense from the mission. "The Jarax prisoner is being interrogated. It's confirming everything we suspected. The selection committee has been operating secretly within the Council for thousands of years, periodically pruning species they deem evolutionary dead ends or potential threats." "How many?" Kayla asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Hundreds, possibly more. The Jarax were specifically created to be their enforcement arm, a species designed for the sole purpose of executing the committee's directives without question." "Created," Kayla repeated incredulously. Wei nodded grimly. "Genetically engineered from an existing species centuries ago. They believe they're fulfilling some cosmic destiny by purifying the galactic evolutionary tree." The revelation was sickening. Not just genocide, but industrialized extinction on a scale almost impossible to comprehend. And the Council, the supposedly benevolent unifying force that humanity had so eagerly joined, had been complicit all along. "Countermeasure synthesis complete," Dr. Bhatnagar announced, holding up a container of luminescent blue fluid. "This, combined with a broadcast frequency, should neutralize the weapon's effects and potentially reverse some of the damage in cases where degradation isn't too advanced." Kayla straightened. "I'll inform the Colonel. My squad is ready to deploy to the surface when needed." On the bridge, Alana received the news with cautious optimism. "Begin preparations for planetary deployment immediately. I want the first shuttles ready to launch in 15 minutes." As the crew rushed to execute her orders, Lieutenant Colonel Milo Reyes reported in from the Harrier. "Colonel, we're detecting unusual energy fluctuations from the Jarax flagship. I think they're trying to bring secondary systems online." "Can they restore propulsion?" Alana asked, concerned that the disabled vessel might become a threat again. "Negative, but they might be attempting to boost their weapon broadcast. If they increase the intensity of the genetic degradation effect, the countermeasure might not be strong enough," Alana finished. "We need to neutralize that ship completely." She considered her options quickly. "Prepare a strike team. We need to plant charges at key points in their remaining power systems." "My team is ready," Milo confirmed. "We can insert through the breach Red Squadron created." "Proceed, but exercise extreme caution. They'll be expecting another boarding action." As Milo's team prepared for their mission, Dr. Bhatnagar arrived on the bridge with the completed countermeasure. "It's ready, Colonel. The delivery system is twofold: an atmospheric dispersal agent, plus a communications broadcast at the inverse frequency of the weapon. Both components must be deployed simultaneously for maximum effectiveness." Alana nodded her understanding. "Lieutenant Vorn's Red Squadron will handle ground deployment at 6 strategic locations. The Storm Shield will coordinate the broadcast portion. Begin final preparations." The next hour was a flurry of activity as the fleet positioned itself for the complex operation. The countermeasure was loaded onto 6 shuttles, each carrying a team from Red Squadron. Lieutenant Colonel Reyes's strike team successfully boarded the Jarak's flagship, encountering minimal resistance as they moved to plant explosive charges at critical power junctions. Colonel, Communications Officer Lin called out suddenly. Long-range sensors detect multiple ships entering the system. Council forces have arrived earlier than projected. Alana's jaw tightened. How many vessels? 6 Thalasian warships approaching at sublight speed. They'll be within weapons range in approximately 40 minutes. Not enough time to complete the operation and withdraw. They would need to deploy the countermeasure while potentially engaging Council forces, a scenario Alana had hoped to avoid. Maintain course, she ordered firmly. The deployment proceeds as planned. Open a channel to the approaching Council fleet. The view screen activated to show a stern-faced Thalasian commander, his opalescent features set in an expression of rigid displeasure. This is High Commander Tetharn of the Galactic Enforcement Division. Human vessels, you are in violation of Council Directive 7349. Power down weapons and prepare to be boarded. Alana stood tall, facing the screen directly. High Commander, this is Colonel Alana Crest of the Human Death Fleet. We are responding to a legitimate distress call from the Vexari civilization, who are the victims of an ongoing genocide. We have evidence this attack was sanctioned by elements within the Council itself. Your accusations are baseless, and your presence unauthorized, Tetharn replied coldly. You will stand down immediately, or face the consequences of your interference. We have recovered irrefutable evidence from the Jarak's flagship, Alana countered. Council authorization codes, communications logs, and detailed plans for the systematic elimination of the Vexari species. Are you aware of the actions of the Selection Committee Commander? A flicker of uncertainty crossed the Thalasian's features, before his expression hardened again. You will surrender all alleged evidence for proper evaluation by Council authorities. Further discussion is unnecessary. With respect, Commander, my mission is to save the Vexari from extinction. That takes precedence over all other considerations. Once that mission is complete, I will personally present our findings to both the Council and Earth Command. This is your final warning, Colonel. Stand down or we will open fire. Alana's response was measured but unyielding. We cannot comply, but I urge you to review the data we're transmitting now before taking hostile action. The truth of what's happening here affects every species in the galaxy, including yours. She signaled to Communications Officer Lin, who initiated a targeted data burst to the Thalasian flagship. It contained selected portions of their evidence enough to raise serious questions, but not their complete findings. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Alana turned to her tactical officer. Status of deployment teams. Shuttles launching now, Colonel. Estimated time to atmosphere 12 minutes. And Lieutenant Colonel Reyes's team. Charges placed and armed. They're withdrawing to their extraction point. Alana nodded, then addressed Commander Iskander. If the Council ships open fire, your priority is protecting the shuttles. The countermeasure must reach the planet's surface. Understood, Colonel. On the view screen, the Thalasian warships continued their approach, weapon systems visibly powering up. Alana had gambled that the evidence might give them pause, but it appeared the Council forces were committed to stopping the human intervention regardless of the truth. Colonel Lin reported, "We're receiving a transmission from Lieutenant Vorn's shuttle." "Put it through." Kayla's voice came through clearly, despite atmospheric interference. Approaching landing zone Alpha. No surface resistance detected, but we're picking up unusual energy readings from the Jarak's bombardment sites. Something's changing down here. Elaborate Alana requested concern evident in her tone. The crystal structures the genetic repositories they're destabilizing at an accelerated rate. Whatever the Jaraks did with that energy pulse, it's reaching some kind of critical threshold. Dr. Bhatnagar, who had remained on the bridge, looked alarmed. If the repositories collapse completely before we deploy the countermeasure, there may not be enough intact genetic material to save the species. Lieutenant Vorn, expedite your deployment, Alana ordered. All shuttles maximum speed to your targets. As the shuttles descended through Vexa Prime's atmosphere, the tactical situation in orbit grew increasingly tense. The Council warships had formed a battle line, clearly preparing to engage the human fleet if they didn't withdraw. Energy spike from the Thalasian flagship, the sensor officer reported. They're charging weapons. Before Alana could respond, Lieutenant Colonel Reyes's voice came through on the command channel. Colonel, we've completed our mission on the Jarax vessel. Charges are set with a 10-minute timer. Requesting immediate extraction. Acknowledged, Alana replied. Falcon 3, proceed to extraction coordinates. She then opened a channel to the Thalasian commander. Hi, Commander Tetharn. I strongly advise against hostile action. The Jarax flagship will experience critical system failure in approximately 9 minutes. The resulting explosion could destabilize this entire area of space. Whether it was the warning or the evidence they had transmitted, the Thalasian vessels paused their advance. A moment later, Commander Tetharn's face appeared on screen again. Colonel Crest. He began, his tone marginally less hostile. Our preliminary analysis of your transmitted data raises concerning questions. I am authorized to offer a temporary cessation of hostilities while we investigate these allegations, provided your fleet withdraws from Vexari orbit immediately. Commander, withdrawal is not possible until our mission is complete, Alana replied firmly. We are deploying a countermeasure to the genetic weapon that has already killed millions of Vexari. This is not negotiable. The Thalasian's expression tightened. You leave me little choice, Colonel. On the contrary, Alana countered, I'm offering you the most important choice of your career. You can either facilitate an act of genocide or help prevent one. The evidence we've provided proves the selection committee exists and has been operating without oversight. Are you certain your orders come from legitimate council authority and not this shadow organization? It was a calculated risk, introducing doubt into the chain of command, but Alana needed time for the countermeasure deployment to complete. After a long moment, Commander Tetharn responded. You have 30 minutes to complete your humanitarian mission. After that, you will withdraw from this system or face the full consequences of your actions. Understood, Commander. Thank you. As the transmission ended, Alana released a tense breath. 30 minutes might be enough if everything went according to plan. Status of Red Squadron's deployment, she asked. First 3 teams have reached their targets and are dispersing the countermeasure, Commander Iskander reported. The remaining shuttles are 2 minutes from touchdown. On Vexa Prime's surface, Lieutenant Kyla Vorn led her team through a landscape of crystalline structures and elegant architecture, now largely abandoned. The few Vexari they encountered were in advanced stages of genetic degradation, their once beautiful crystalline forms clouded and structurally compromised. Set up the dispersal unit here, she ordered, indicating a central plaza surrounded by tall spires. Maximum coverage pattern. As her team worked to assemble the device, Kayla approached one of the dying Vexari. The being's internal light pulsed weakly as it registered her presence. Help! Comes too late. It communicated through a combination of light patterns and subtle vibrations that her helmet translated. We're trying to neutralize the weapon, Kayla explained. There may still be time to save your people. The Vexari's light pattern shifted in what might have been resignation or acceptance. The repositories, failing. Our history, our future. Kayla's determination hardened. Captain Wei, status of the dispersal unit. Ready to activate, Lieutenant. Awaiting coordination with the other teams. She opened her comm channel. Red Squadron, this is Lieutenant Vorn. Report deployment status. One by one, the other 5 teams confirmed they were in position and ready. Kayla relayed the information to the Storm Shield. Colonel, all ground teams report ready for countermeasure deployment. Understood, Lieutenant. Alana's voice came through clearly. The Storm Shield is prepared to begin the broadcast sequence. Initiate dispersal on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. Simultaneously, across Vexa Prime, 6 dispersal units activated, releasing a fine mist of the countermeasure into the atmosphere. From orbit, the storm shield began broadcasting the inverse frequency pattern, calculated to neutralize the genetic weapon's effect. For several tense minutes, there was no visible change. Then slowly, the Vexari near Kayla's position began to emit stronger light patterns. The clouding in their crystalline structures didn't reverse, but it stopped advancing. "It's working," Captain Wei observed. "The degradation has halted." Kayla quickly reported the development to the storm shield. "Colonel, we're seeing positive effects. The countermeasure appears to be stabilizing the Vexari physiology." In orbit, the news was met with cautious optimism. "Continue monitoring and maintain dispersal," Alana ordered. "We need complete planetary coverage." Just then, a massive explosion illuminated space as the charges on the Jarax flagship detonated. The vessel broke apart in a spectacular cascade of secondary explosions, effectively removing it as a threat. Lieutenant Colonel Reyes's extraction shuttle safely cleared the blast zone, returning to the Harrier with his team intact. Jarax command vessel neutralized. Commander Iskander confirmed. The remaining enemy ships are breaking formation, moving away from the planet. "Without their flagship, they've lost centralized control," Alana observed, "and likely the ability to coordinate the genetic weapon." Dr. Bhatnagar studied the incoming data from the planet's surface. "The countermeasure is working better than anticipated. We're seeing stabilization in approximately 80% of monitored Vexari, with some showing early signs of cellular regeneration." "What about the genetic repositories?" Alana asked. "The destruction appears to have been halted, but much has already been lost. It will take time to determine if enough remains to ensure the species' long-term survival." The minutes ticked by as the countermeasure continued to disperse throughout Vexa Prime's atmosphere. Reports from Red Squadron confirmed increasing signs of recovery among the Vexari population, though many had already been lost to the weapon's effects. As the 30-minute deadline approached, Commander Tetharn contacted the Storm Shield again. "Colonel Crest, your time is nearly expired. What is the status of your operation?" "The countermeasure has been successfully deployed," Alana reported. "The genetic weapon has been neutralized and surviving Vexari are beginning to stabilize. We've also destroyed the Jarax command vessel, which was coordinating the attack." The Thalasian commander studied her for a long moment before responding. "Our analysts have completed a preliminary review of your evidence. The implications are disturbing. I have requested further instructions from Council headquarters. And I am ordered to escort your fleet to the Council station in the Arcturus sector, where you will surrender all evidence and submit to official inquiry. Non-compliance will be met with force." Alana considered the situation carefully. They had accomplished their primary mission, stopping the genocide and deploying the countermeasure. The evidence they had gathered was secure in multiple locations, including copies already transmitted to Earth Command. A direct confrontation with Council forces would only result in unnecessary casualties. "We will comply with escort to Arcturus," she decided. "But the evidence remains in our possession until a formal inquiry with representatives from all Council species, including humanity, is convened." Tetharn appeared to weigh this condition before nodding reluctantly. "Acceptable, provided your weapons remain powered down for the duration of the journey." "Agreed, with one exception," Alana countered. "I'm leaving 2 vessels to continue monitoring the Vexari recovery and provide medical assistance. They will maintain defensive capabilities, but take no aggressive action." After a brief hesitation, the Thalasian commander agreed to these terms. The diplomatic dance completed, Alana turned to her officers. "Prepare the fleet for departure to Arcturus. Lieutenant Commander Kapoor will remain with the medical vessel to coordinate recovery efforts." As the Death Fleet prepared to depart, Vexa Prime Lieutenant Kayla Vorn's team made one final check of the countermeasure dispersal units to ensure they would continue functioning. The Vexari they had first encountered approached her again, its light patterns stronger now. "You have prevented our extinction," it communicated. "The ones called Deathworlders brought life instead of death." "We came because you called," Kayla replied simply. No sentient species should face extermination alone. Our history will remember this day. The crystal repositories, though damaged, will carry the memory of human intervention for generations to come. Kayla nodded, touched by the sentiment but aware of the uncertain future both species now faced. Take care of your people. We'll leave medical teams to help with recovery. As her squad returned to their shuttle for extraction, Kayla couldn't help but wonder what implications their actions would have for humanity's place in the galactic community. They had directly challenged the Council's secret practices and exposed a conspiracy spanning thousands of years. The political fallout would be immense. On the bridge of the Storm Shield, Alana watched as the fleet formed up for departure, the Thalasian warships taking escort positions around them. It was not how she had envisioned this mission concluding, but they had succeeded in their primary objective. The Vexari would survive. Course laid in for Arcturus, Colonel, the navigation officer reported. Ready, at your command. Alana nodded, then opened a fleet-wide channel. This is Colonel Crest. Today the Death Fleet lived up to its purpose, not dealing death, but preventing it. You all performed your duties with exceptional courage and determination, even when it meant challenging the very authorities we normally answer to. She paused, aware that the weight of their actions would follow them all. What happens next will not be easy. We will face inquiries, possibly censure, perhaps worse. But never doubt that what we did here was right. The Vexari survived because we chose to act when others would not. Remember that in the days ahead. As the fleet accelerated toward the jump point, Alana took one last look at Vexa Prime on the view screen. The blue-green planet continued its serene orbit, unaware of how close it had come to losing the civilization it harbored, or of the political storm about to engulf the galaxy because of what had transpired in its skies. 3 weeks later, Alana stood before the hastily convened galactic inquest on Arcturus Station. Representatives from all 27 council species occupied tiered seating in the massive chamber, with a panel of 9 high justices presiding. The evidence recovered from the Jarax flagship had been presented in full, causing shockwaves throughout the galactic community. Colonel Crest, the senior justice. A venerable Melosian addressed her formally. You stand before this inquest having violated direct council orders and engaged in unauthorized military action. However, the evidence you have presented raises profound questions about the legitimacy of those very orders. The chamber was silent as all eyes focused on Alana. She stood tall in her formal uniform, the weight of her actions balanced by the conviction that they had been necessary. The existence of the selection committee has been confirmed. The justice continued, as has its involvement in numerous species extinctions over millennia. Council Delegate Selin Armour and 6 other high-ranking officials have been detained pending further investigation. Murmurs spread through the assembly at this announcement. The implications were staggering: a shadow organization within the council itself, systematically culling species deemed evolutionary dead ends, under the guise of cosmic efficiency. The question before this inquest is not whether your evidence is valid, that has been established beyond doubt. The question is whether your unilateral action, however justified by subsequent discoveries, constitutes a dangerous precedent for interstellar relations. Alana stepped forward when indicated to speak. Honorable Justices, representatives of the Council species, I stand by the decision to deploy the Death Fleet in response to the Vexari distress call. When faced with genocide, hesitation is complicity. The Deathworlders of Earth evolved in an environment that taught us a simple truth. Survival often depends on immediate action. She paused, looking around the chamber at the diverse species represented there. But this is not merely about human instincts or values. The Galactic Charter, which all our civilizations have affirmed explicitly, prohibits the elimination of sentient species. If that prohibition means anything, it must mean that we are all obligated to prevent such atrocities when we become aware of them, regardless of who is responsible. Several representatives nodded in agreement, though others remained stone-faced. The selection committee operated in darkness for thousands of years, because the council's protocols favored deliberation over-action process, over-intervention. How many civilizations were lost while evidence was gathered and committees deliberated? The Vexari survived because we chose a different path. The senior justice considered her words carefully before responding. Your actions saved a civilization, Colonel. That cannot be disputed. But they also revealed profound flaws in the Council's structure and oversight. The repercussions will be felt for generations. Change often comes at a cost, Alana replied quietly. But the alternative, allowing the status quo to continue, would have cost countless more lives. After hours of further testimony and deliberation, the inquest reached its decision. The senior justice rose to deliver the verdict. In the matter of the human intervention at Vexa Prime, this inquest finds that while proper protocols were not followed, the extraordinary circumstances and the evidence of Council corruption justify the actions taken. Colonel Alana Crest and the Death Fleet personnel are cleared of all charges related to this incident. Relief washed through Alana, though she maintained her composure. Furthermore, the justice continued, this inquest recommends a complete restructuring of Council emergency response protocols, with specific provisions for immediate action in cases of imminent species extinction. The Humans Deathworlder Initiative will serve as a model for a new rapid response force under proper oversight. The remainder of the verdict outlined sweeping changes to Council structure and governance, including transparency requirements and checks against the concentration of power that had allowed the selection committee to operate undetected. As the formal proceedings concluded, Alana found herself approached by a Vexari representative, one of the few healthy enough to travel to Arcturus for the inquest. Colonel Crest, the crystalline being communicated its internal lights, forming patterns of respect and gratitude. The Vexari remnant formally requests an alliance with humanity. Our species would not exist without your intervention, and we wish to ensure such bonds are formalized for the future. The alliance would honor us, Alana replied sincerely, though I hope the need for such intervention never arises again. The Council names you Deathworlders, as if it were something to fear, the Vexari observed. Yet in our darkest hour it was precisely that quality which saved us. Perhaps the galaxy needs more who are willing to face death unflinchingly when the cause is just. Later, as she prepared to return to the Storm Shield for the journey back to Earth, Alana was informed that the Council had bestowed upon her the title Storm Shield, an ancient designation for those who stand between the innocent and destruction. It was both an acknowledgement of her actions and a subtle reminder of the responsibility such power carried. Lieutenant Colonel Milo Reyes and Lieutenant Kayla Vorn waited for her at the docking bay, both having been key witnesses in the inquest proceedings. So, Storm Shield Crest, Milo said with a hint of a smile. It has a certain ring to it. Just Colonel will do, Alana replied, though she couldn't help a small smile of her own. We still have a fleet to run. And a galaxy to keep an eye on, Kayla added more soberly. The selection committee may have been exposed, but the mentality behind it, the idea that some species are more valuable than others, won't disappear overnight. Alana nodded in agreement. Which is why the Death Fleet's mission is more important than ever. We stand ready not just for humanity, but for all who face extinction from those who would play cosmic judge. As they boarded the shuttle that would return them to their ship, Alana reflected on the events that had begun with a simple distress call. The Vexari would recover, though their population was decimated and much of their genetic heritage lost. The galaxy was awakening to the terrible truth of the selection committee's activities over millennia. And humanity had defined its place in the interstellar community, not as obedient newcomers, but as principled defenders, willing to challenge even the highest authorities when justice demanded it. The unofficial motto of the Death Fleet took on new meaning now. No mercy was not a threat against the innocent, but a promise to those who would harm them, a declaration that humanity would show no hesitation, no compromise, no mercy when confronting genocide, regardless of who perpetrated it. As the Storm Shield broke orbit from Arcturus Station setting course for Earth, Alana knew that the ripples from their actions at Vexa Prime would continue to spread throughout the galaxy for years to come. The Council was changing, species were re-evaluating their relationships, and a new balance of power was emerging, one in which the fierce determination of Deathworlders served not as a threat, but as a shield for all sentient life. Whatever challenges lay ahead, the Death Fleet would face them, as they had faced the Jarax and the Selection Committee with unwavering resolve, and the conviction that some principles transcended even the oldest authorities. The storm had passed for now, but Alana Crest, newly christened Storm Shield, knew that her true work was just beginning.